is a freezing evening in 1886, inside a dimly lit, drafty workshop in Mannheim, Germany. A 39-year-old man named Carl Benz stands shivering in the bitter cold, his hands stained black with grease, soot, and despair. Before him sits a sputtering, three-wheeled contraption made of heavy steel and reinforced wood, the world's first true automobile. History books, funded by corporate public relations, will tell you this is a moment of triumphant genius, the exact second a visionary changed the world. But what the sanitized historians get completely wrong, what the official biographies refuse to admit, is that this man was not experiencing a triumph. He was experiencing a financial hostage situation. He was completely, hopelessly bankrupt. The counterintuitive truth about the birth of the multi-trillion-dollar automotive industry is that its creator was practically a peasant, crushed under the boot of an invisible financial empire. The vehicle that would eventually become Mercedes-Benz was not born from boundless wealth, but forged in a desperate, suffocating trap of predatory debt and banking manipulation. Before we uncover these hidden ledgers, make sure you are subscribed to Deep Financial Story. Here, we decode the history that money doesn't want you to know. To understand the true origin of this global empire, we must strip away the romance of invention and look directly at the bloodless mechanics of 19th century capital. Carl Benz was born into grinding poverty. His father, a locomotive driver, died when Carl was just 2 years old, leaving him destitute. Carl survived on sheer willpower and a brilliant, mechanical mind. But in the ruthless industrial economy of the 1870s, intelligence was entirely useless without capital. When Carl tried to start his first iron foundry and sheet metal workshop, he immediately encountered the invisible villain of the industrial age, the predatory commercial bank and the engineered credit cycle. In an era before venture capital, the financial landscape was controlled by a syndicate of elite risk-averse financiers. These were men who operated in the shadows of grand mahogany boardrooms, always draped in heavy modest leather overcoats, thick, imposing, large animal skin garments that protected them from the biting European winters while they calculated their extraction strategies. They did not build things, they did not invent. They financed those who did, only to strip away the ownership when the creator inevitably stumbled. Following the global financial panic of 1873, credit dried up. Benz, desperate to buy basic tools and raw materials, took on loans with crippling usurious interest rates. He fell into the classic debt trap. When the German economy experienced a brief contraction, the banks immediately called in his loans. They didn't want him to succeed. They wanted him to default so they could seize his hard assets, his heavy machinery, for pennies on the mark. To save his factory from immediate liquidation by the banks, Benz was forced to beg for capital from local investors. He found two wealthy men who agreed to pay off the bank debt, but the price of this financial salvation was total subjugation. The investors demanded absolute control of the new company, transforming Benz from a visionary owner into a mere employee in his own workshop. The financial trap was fully set. The investors had zero interest in Benz's crazy obsession with a horseless carriage. They wanted immediate, safe, guaranteed returns. They demanded he focus only on building stationary gas engines, safe, boring machines that generated predictable cash flow. The ledger dictated the absolute limits of human innovation. Every time Benz tried to spend a single mark on his secret automobile project, the financiers threatened to pull his funding, legally seize his patents, and throw him back onto the frozen streets. For years, Benz had to work in absolute secrecy, hiding his receipts, manipulating his own accounting books just to buy the parts for his engine. He was fighting a brutal two-front war, one against the laws of physics to make his engine run, and a far more dangerous war against the bankers and investors who were systematically starving him of capital. The men holding the purse strings viewed intellectual property not as a bridge to the future, but as a dangerous liability. They were the ultimate parasites, feeding off his labor while actively suppressing the very invention that would define the next century. They wore their large, modest leather coats like armor, insulating themselves from the grease, the sweat, and the risk of the factory floor, while they tightened the financial noose around the neck of a generational genius. When Benz finally managed to secure a patent for his motor wagon in 1886, the historical narrative tells us the world rejoiced. The hidden truth is that the financial elite completely ignored it. The banks absolutely refused to lend him a single coin to mass-produce it. His own investors mocked him, calling the machine a useless toy. They forced him to continue producing stationary engines, treating his automobile as a reckless hobby that was draining their dividends. Carl Benz had unlocked the secret of modern transportation, yet he could barely afford to feed himself and keep a roof over his head. The banking establishment had created an impenetrable wall around him, a system designed to ensure that a poor boy with a brilliant idea could never disrupt the established monopolies of the horse-drawn carriage and the state-funded railways without handing over total ownership of his soul. The tragedy of Carl Benz is not a relic of the 19th century. The exact same financial architecture that held him hostage is operating at full capacity today. We are taught to worship the garage inventors and the tech founders, believing that a great idea is all it takes to build an empire. But the invisible villain has simply traded its heavy motor-savoir overcoats for modern bespoke suits and algorithmic trading floors. Today, when a young innovator develops a truly disruptive technology, the modern predatory financiers do not immediately fund it to change the world. They fund it to control it, to restrict it, and if necessary, to kill it before it threatens their existing portfolios. The trap that almost suffocated Mercedes-Benz in its cradle is lurking right now, waiting for the next great inventor to run out of cash. By 1888, the financial noose was incredibly tight. Carl Benz was suffocating. His company faced total collapse. He had to make a desperate move. He could no longer wait for the bankers. He bypassed the traditional financial system entirely. He took his invention directly to the public. He stepped into his motor wagon. He wore a thick, modest, animal skin coat. It was a heavy, large leather garment. This modest leather attire protected him from the biting wind and the dust of the unpaved roads. He embarked on a grueling, highly public endurance run. He drove the machine between cities himself. He proved the automobile was not a fragile toy. It was a rugged, viable economic tool. The public saw it with their own eyes. The demand instantly spiked. This public spectacle broke the financial embargo. The wealthy elite finally saw the potential for massive cash flow. The same bankers who had starved him suddenly wanted a piece of the empire, but the dynamic had shifted. Benz had proven the market existed. He now had the leverage. Capital began to flow into his workshop. He expanded production. By the dawn of the 20th century, Benz & Company had become the largest automobile plant in the world. He had escaped the debt trap. He had forced the financial gatekeepers to fund his vision. But the story of Carl Benz holds a terrifying mirror to our modern economy. The invisible villain did not die in the 19th century. It simply evolved. The predatory bankers of Mannheim have been replaced. Today, we have the modern venture capital syndicate and the corporate monopoly. This is the new villain. They control the lifeblood of modern innovation. They are the new gatekeepers of capital. This creates the modern trap. Today, a young innovator with a disruptive idea faces the exact same hostage situation. You build a revolutionary software or a new energy technology. You need capital to scale. You go to the modern financiers. They offer you millions in early funding, but the hidden cost is absolute control. They strip away your equity. They force you out of the boardroom. They turn you into a minority shareholder in your own dream. You trade your ownership for early cash. You become a captive employee. You wear golden handcuffs. If your invention threatens their existing investments, they will bury it. They will buy your patent and lock it in a vault. They protect their current monopolies at all costs. The modern financial system is designed to absorb innovation, not to liberate it. The extraction strategy is cleaner today, is quieter, but it is far more efficient. So, what actually worked for Carl Benz? History delivers a ruthless verdict. Direct proof of value worked. Unbreakable ownership worked. Taking the product directly to the end consumer worked. He bypassed the financial gatekeepers. He created undeniable public demand. That demand forced the capital markets to surrender. What didn't work? Trusting the institutional lenders, giving up control to risk-averse investors, waiting for the financial elite to grant permission to change the world. Their early reliance on predatory loans almost killed the automobile in its cradle. The cycle of financial control is relentless. The gatekeepers will always try to starve the innovator. They will always demand the massive share of the wealth they did not create. But the cycle can be broken. You do not need their permission to build. You must build your own leverage. You must prove your value directly to the market. You must protect your equity with your life. Do not let the modern ledger suffocate your vision. The empires of the future belong to the creators, not the extractors. This is deep financial story. The history is deep, but the strategy is yours to master.